I could tell you a little secret. So there's this bestseller book, and I want to say it's like the 7 Principles of Marriage, something like that. Now, remember, George and I are commitment phobic in certain ways. Not to say that we will never get married, because we will.
Yes.
But I have to be careful sometimes with the words I use him. So sometimes I read him a book at night, like when we don't feel like watching a movie and we're just relaxing. So he'll let me read to him. So I'm reading that book to him, but I told him it's called The 7 Principles of a Relationship. So
Oh,
every time
sneaky.
the word marriage is used, I switch it to relationship.
I'm Emily Calloway, and this is Kismet. Kismet is a podcast featuring your true love stories. Today, I will be speaking with Rose Caiazzo, who will be sharing her Kismet story of meeting her person on a night when nothing seemed to be going right. Hello, Rose. Welcome to Kismet.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, I am so glad to have you here. When we connected a few weeks ago before your big vacation, just loved hearing your story. And the few stories that I've had and covered already have all been people that have been married before. So I love having someone that has not been married tell their story about meeting their person. So, to get started today, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what makes you happy, um, all the things that are separate from your partnership.
All the things.
All the things.
Yes. Well, I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I took on the name of my town, right? Because I was a syndicated radio show host, so I am Jackson Hole Rose as well. People know me as. And I am a voice talent in addition to being an on-camera host and an MC. So that's what I do, and I still love it so much, in addition to going out into the mountains and basically hiking up peaks and sliding down mountains on a snowboard, and I guess hiking and biking. That's what makes up me.
Yeah. And you're originally from New York, right? So you moved to Jackson Hole at one point. What point?
It was back in 2007, and actually, I was
Uh-huh.
told I was moving here. I did not
Really?
select it.
How did that come about?
Well, I actually sold almost everything I owned and became a guide. And they decided that Jackson Hole was the place I was coming for the first summer. And so I cried a mean streak because I didn't want to be someplace that was landlocked. I was so used to living out in Long Island and near the water that it was very strange for me to think that I was going to be stuck in a place that was landlocked. So, but of course, as soon as I moved here, I fell in what we call Teton love,
Hmm.
and I started my business and went on from there.
Awesome. That is in itself quite a trajectory. So being a New York East Coast girl, moving out to the West and like really the wild, wild West, so to speak.
I don't think I belonged out there because people would see me and they'd be like, Rose, we saw you running today on your lunch hour. I was like, yeah. They say, well, you were wearing shorts. Yeah. It was snowing. Like, what are you doing? And so I was always biking in the snow and doing all these strange things that people in New York never really, I guess it didn't catch on quite quickly enough. So when I came to Jackson, I met my people.
Yeah, I love that. So, I love that whole journey in itself. So, okay, you get to Jackson, you start this sort of career or continue this career as a tour guide, and then take us up to the point where you met your partner. So, take us to like what from 2007 onward, what were you doing in terms of dating? Were you dating? Were you interested in dating? Where were you sort of in that mind space?
Well, I had just sold everything I owned, so I was feeling very, very free. And I was loving meeting people here in this town. So, dating in a mountain town is not something that typically is How do we describe it? There's a lot of Peter Pans that exist in mountain towns. So it's hard sometimes to get the man's attention to you because their attention is so much on the mountains or on the river or whatever it is that the extreme sport that they do. So I was dating people, but it was very um, here nor there. Like, well, we're relaxed. We're having a relaxed relationship. And then, I wouldn't date someone for a couple of years. Then, oh, okay, I met someone. There was always a couple of maybe like a year or so we'd date. Back in the day when eHarmony used to cost a lot of money, I would try to swing a deal with them and say, hey, like I want to do 3 months of eHarmony. So it was like a thing I did every year. I did eHarmony in the springtime when I was like semi bored.
Mhm.
And I would
Mhm.
try to meet people through there. And I did. And I actually met some really nice men, some that I never dated, some that we became friends, some we became Facebook friends, and another that I dated for almost 3 years. He moved to Jackson to see if we could make it work. And unfortunately, that didn't work.
Or fortunately now, because that is not the person that you're with. So, okay. So
Right.
you were sort of dating here and there, somewhat casually. I remember you were telling me when we connected that your dates were like kind of these, what most women would probably be a little scared to do, which is like these adventure dates. So, like somebody that you hadn't met and you'd go camping with them or go out
Yes.
in the wild. So, tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Like I was a mountain bike guide for 16 years and biking was very important to me. So I would want to go mountain biking if I was going to a different location like Big Sky. So I had met someone that lived in Big Sky and he was also a mountain biker. So we said, "Oh, hey, like we should go and do this and meet up and we can camp in the same spot, have our own separate tents, do our own thing, but like, go biking." And that's what we decided. And another time camping was someone who was from Colorado, and I had talked to him for a little bit, before we actually met. So it wasn't like, I didn't know them because we were
Mhm.
talking for a few weeks before we actually met. But I guess you could say it was like a first date because we had never met before.
It seems like you were sort of open to geography as well, because Montana, Colorado, yeah, casting a
Yes.
wider net,
And
so to speak.
I had mine open to the world, which
Oh,
unfortunately you see things that maybe sometimes you don't want to see. Like I
mm,
actually had to go through the situation of seeing a good friend's boyfriend on one of the Bumble
mm,
sites because I
wow.
started using Bumble later. And
Yeah,
I had talked to a bunch of my girlfriends and I said, I think I need to tell her, do you also agree? And everyone was like, yes, 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 yes. So we had to tell her. Of course, he had some silly excuse, like, oh, well, I was near there. And everyone was like, oh, you should try it. So I was showing my friend how to do it. But
mhm.
I took the screenshots. Yeah.
Yeah, smart, smart. So, okay, so you've been doing some online dating at this point, having some luck here and there, but still just not really finding the right match. So that gets into the good stuff. So take us through how you met your person.
Okay. So I had not dated anyone in 7 years. So picture yourself in this situation, right? And it was Valentine's Day, and I was asked to do a live stream at the Wart Hotel, which is a historic place inside of Jackson Hole where there's all kinds of fun dancing that goes on Tuesday nights. And so it landed on a Tuesday. So I went there to do my live stream. And of course, the place was packed because it's a bar, the Silver Dollar Bar. And I got dinner and I sat and I ate it. And there wasn't really anyone that I knew. Seemed like it was filled with visitors. And then a woman spilled beer in my boot. And I thought, you know what? I think I'm done for tonight. I'm going to
Yeah.
call the bus and I'm going to head home. So I called the bus because I live in East Jackson, which allows for these mini buses to come and pick you up because they don't have regular bus service there. So I called them. They said, okay, it'll be 50 minutes. And I was like, did you say 15 or 50? And they said 50. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll wait around, because obviously I don't feel like walking all the way home in winter.
Ye Yeah, I
So,
mean, I'm thinking it's February, it's in
yes,
Jackson Hole, so very cold. It's Valentine's Day. You're by yourself
it's
waiting
like
for a
11.
bus.
What time was it? It was like maybe 10 o'clock at night. Like I was like, I'm
Yeah,
done.
and to add insult to injury, you have beer in your shoe now. So
Yes, in my
I
cowboy
so
boot. I was
I
not
just
happy.
can't imagine, like, I would at least be feeling very sorry for myself at that moment, but, I'm not sure how you were feeling, but I would be
Well, I guess,
personally.
I was like on my phone in a leather chair thinking, oh my gosh, I have to sit here for 50 minutes. I don't want to go back in there. I'm just going to wait out in the hotel area and, until the bus comes. And what George had told me is that he saw me sitting in that leather chair, like, that girl's sitting by herself. I wonder what that's about. And then went outside to wait for the bus. And so when I knew the bus was getting quicker, I went outside. And that's when we kind of like he started saying Fenner, hey Fenner, and I was like, this guy talking to me? My name is not Fenner. And I turned around and he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were my friend Fenner. He's like, you're much prettier than Fenner. I was like,
Mm.
well, thank you very much. I was holding a rose in my hand because someone was going around the bar just literally giving out roses to all of the women. And so he goes, oh, you have a rose there. He's like, did your boyfriend give that to you? And I said, I don't have a boyfriend. And I think we just started talking from there. And it was just very light and casual. And, oh, I'm waiting for the bus too, that type of thing. And the little mini bus pulls up. So we're like, okay, the bus is here. Great. So we go to get on the bus and it's literally packed with people. And I'm not sure if any, like, because everyone was quiet and staring straight ahead and sitting in their seat. It was kind of odd. Like, I don't think there's any seats for us. And so from there, I turned around to him because, he let me go first. And I said, you know what? Why don't we I'll wait with you for the next bus. And he was like, oh, okay. So we leave the bus. We go back inside. He's like, let me buy you a drink then. So we sat down, we had a drink. It was like our first date. And we just chatted away until our bus came. I think it was like 25 minutes later. And then we went outside and up came the minibus, exactly where we were before, except no one was on the bus. And it was just the bus driver and us. And we were like, oh, okay, I guess you made all your drop offs, right? So then, of course, we had just met, so we didn't know where we lived. So I explained to the bus driver where to drop me. And George said, oh my gosh, I live right around the block from you. And I was like, you do? And he was like, yeah. And so when we were on the bus and, we just were chatting, he took my number and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. What a great story. And the fact that the bus was full the first time, but then when they came back around, you had sort of like your own carriage ride home to your same
Yes.
neighborhood, which is also wild that you lived in the same neighborhood. So, what was your impression when you first met him? Were you like, "Oh, this guy is cute"? Like, could you believe your luck, or was it sort of like one of those like, I'm just kind of like gonna lean into this and see what happens?
I am a leaner in of things. And so the
Mhm.
first thing that captured me was his smile. And I
Mhm.
joke with him that he has a Casaletta smile because his last name is Casaletta. And so he smiled a lot. And I liked that. And I could tell by the way he dressed that he was some type of possibly ski person. So I can usually tell by clothing or the way that they hold themselves, like what type of grouping that they're in, right? Because I hang out in the business crowd and he is an extreme skier. So, but it was his smile really that brought me in and just his openness to kind of talk and chat and sit and have a drink. And there was hardly anyone at the bar anymore because everyone had gone home. But we, of course, were waiting for the second bus. So we just kept chatting. Like we never, even to this day, have any lack of. being able to speak about something, right? We're
Yeah.
always chatting about our day. We're chatting about what happened here, what happened on social media, what, when he goes and he does his extreme skis, the next, um, that evening, he'll share with me, like, look at this, I was here and I did this line, and he'll explain everything to me. So,
Yeah. So you have your first sort of happenstance date on Valentine's Day, waiting for the bus, in the bar, and then on the bus. So how fast did things progress from that point on? Did you start seeing him regularly? Like, what was the second first date, I guess, like?
right? Well, I was kind of annoyed that he waited 3 days to call me.
Is this
Because then I thought,
2025, George? Well, I guess at that point it wasn't 2025. I don't know what year you guys met. What
"Oh,
year
it's
did you
been
meet?
2 years." Yeah,
2
so a little
years.
over
Okay.
2 years. Mhm, so we
Yeah.
met in
Those rules do not
2023.
apply anymore. But okay, go ahead.
I was annoyed that he didn't call me, like, right away, because I had felt such this connection with him, and normally when you have that, you're like, "Oh, like, I hope to talk to you the next day." And then when he doesn't call the day after that, and then the day after that, you're kinda like, "Okay, well, I guess maybe that was nothing," right? Because
Mhm.
as women, we kind of have to let it roll off our back in the sense of maybe there's a connection that we didn't realize that they didn't feel, right?
Yeah.
And that's the
Yeah.
hard part about dating. So I didn't forget about him. I mean, how can you forget someone, in 3 days? But then he called me. And that was really exciting for me because, again, that we were able to just talk and pick up things. And he was like, "Well, I live around the corner from you, so I could, swing by and pick you up and we can go to dinner." And I was like, "Okay, that sounds good to me." And I happened to be free because I know the whole thing, like, you're not supposed to say, like, "I'm free right now." But I went with the whole, "I'm free right now and you're lucky, so let's go."
Yeah.
Right?
Late leaning in, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes you gotta do it. You gotta just trust your gut and say, "Hey, you know what? I think to have something different, sometimes you gotta do things a little bit different that maybe, you don't ordinarily do." So, and obviously it worked out since you're still together and talking about him now on my podcast. So how like in terms of your relationship and knowing that this was something different, other than that initial connection where obviously there was something there for the both of you, um, when did you realize, "I think this is really something. I think this might be it."
I think for both of us it was. We just didn't want to admit it right away,
Mhm.
right? So I didn't date anyone else while I was seeing him because
Yeah.
we saw each other almost 6 months before he asked me to be his girlfriend officially.
Mhm.
And when I said something about, "Well, I'm not your girlfriend," he goes, "Yes, you are." And I was like, "You haven't officially asked me, so I'm not really sure, like, what that's about." And he's like, "Oh, I need to ask you officially?" I said, "Yes, you do." But we were already boyfriend and girlfriend at that point. It's just, sometimes those conversations can be
Yeah.
awkward and strange. And are we, and then what are you going to wait until I see you with another woman or something? But we were both not that way. We're both older. And
Yeah.
so I think for us, we treat each other so well because of what we've learned in our past with regards to dating and the people that we've been with and the things that worked and the things that don't work. And so we're very committed to each other. I wish I had the ring on so I could show you, but he did buy me a Teton ring, which is just basically the shape of the mountains in diamonds for our last anniversary, our 2-year anniversary. And I just adore it. I have like a special ring holder. I keep at his house where I'm like, "Here's my ring, put it on a holder." So it's at his house. Unfortunately, I forgot to grab it before the show, but it's gorgeous. And we'll just be sitting there and I'll just look at him and be like, "I love my sparkly ring." I
Mm.
wear it on my right hand. But,
Yeah.
we talk about the future and I'm like, if we need to move that to the left hand, we'll do that.
Yeah. I think that's what a beautiful gift. I mean, shaped in the Teton shape. Like, that's really neat. So you were saying that you both had been through a lot in other relationships and like learned how to sort of treat people and be more committed. So can you talk a little bit about that? What you did differently in this relationship to sort of foster this commitment versus past relationships?
I would say on my side, what I did was in all these years that I've been dating, it's almost like I've gotten closer and closer and closer to the person that I've been looking for. And, they mainly say that that's about ourselves and who we are and working deep within our own psyche about the type of person we are, how we act, this type of thing. So, besides all of the self help books that I read, I read a lot of dating books or I would watch dating podcasts and just try to glean. Like, I always tried to understand the inside brain of a man, which, of course, as women, we cannot. But I tried my very best to understand the perspective of where men are coming from when they think. And so by the time I had met him, there was a lot that he displayed that I understood was something that a man would say, but then what you say in return is important for him to open up, right?
Mhm.
And I would say on his side, this is the trend that I see, right? He may disagree, but because he's so good at what he does in the backcountry, he is an extreme athlete, right? So he does things in the backcountry skiing that nobody else does. It's almost like being a movie star. People see
Mhm.
him, right? And they know like he's been in videos and movies and different things with the things that he does skiing, that it almost becomes this wrapped up thing that women want, that they think, well, I have this man and he's so good at what like almost showing him off, right?
Right.
So I think he knew that he was being used in some kinds of ways, like with popularity, this type of thing, like being seen around town with him, that type of thing. Whereas I think he realized I really was treating him like a real person, right? Like
Mhm.
we hardly ever have a disagreement. And if we do, we talk it through. And I made that very clear to him from the start. Like there will never, ever be any cursing between us. If we have a disagreement, we will chat it through like normal people. And, from what I've seen, what I've heard, what I have experienced, that is just one of my like this is my boundary here. You don't go over it. Otherwise, you'll lose me. Right.
Yeah.
And so he's known that from the very start, especially with another boundary, which is you don't get a trial period with me. Right now is your trial period. If you want to live with me, then the ring goes over here. Right. Because I've
Yeah.
done that too many times that unfortunately he's the guy that I'm not going to do that with again.
Yeah. Well, I think that's, you're talking about, being older and just sort of having dated a lot and experienced a lot. And I think it's bringing a lot of those lessons to the table. Like, this is who I am. I don't care about clout. I don't care about you being a famous extreme ski instructor or whatever. I care about you as a person and this connection that we have and establishing something real. So either you're in it and we're going to be direct and we're going to address things as they happen, or, I'm not the person for you and you're not the person for me. And I think that sort of clarity and that, at least for me, when I was younger, I was not able to verbalize that to a person. I just was too scared to be direct with what I wanted. And I think that is like get to a certain age and it's just not worth the heartache or the pain anymore. And who has the time, you know? So
I mean, we say it
so
in a kind way, right? Like,
yeah, not making demands, just saying, "Hey, listen, I want to meet you where you are and I want you to meet me where I am and, see if we can figure this thing called love out together." What are you guys up to now? I know you just went to a great concert, but what are the things that you enjoy doing together? And, what are some of the things that, since you've been together, that I guess have been surprises or different or from other relationships that you've had?
What are we up to? I'll just answer that part first because travel is always lights us up, right? We
Yeah.
love where we live. Like, don't get us wrong. We know we live in vacation land itself. So, but we are taking a vacation to New York, which he's not very pleased about because, he's not a big fan, but we're both from New York. And
Yeah.
so I'll get to meet his dad, and I'll also get to introduce him to some of my extended family as well. And then we'll do a beach vacation in Montauk. And then next
Mhm.
year, we're planning to go to Italy together to see our heritage because we're both half Italian. So that's really exciting to plan a big trip like that. But I would say we live separately, right? So I live in
Mhm.
my apartment, he lives in his. And it's interesting dating someone and living around the block from them. But we have dinner together almost every night. It's one of our just regular kind of evening things where we love to cook together. We love maybe somewhat to clean together, but we do clean, right? Because we got to, so whoever cooks, the other person cleans. Although sometimes we'll split the cleaning duty because we both are like, oh, dishes. But yeah, I would say, and then on our days off, I try to work on the days that he works so that way we have the same days off. And we're unusual than most people. We have off like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to weekends. So we work on weekends and then we play during the week. So in summertime, we're camping, we are mountain biking, we're, hiking peaks. We're thinking about where we're going in the Tetons, where we're going to go in the winds, all the different mountainous areas around us, and what we can do together hiking, biking. We paddleboard the Snake River on our days off too, and that's really fun. And you really need to pay attention.
Yeah, sounds like it. I love all of that. And it sounds like you've met a true partner. So, someone that enjoys doing the things that you want to do, someone that is also willing to clean with you and cook with you. That is definitely a priority for me moving forward is finding that true partner.
He loves to cook for me
I
too.
love that. Yeah, that's a keeper right there for sure.
Yeah.
In terms of all of the singles out there like myself, do you have any advice that you would share from
Yeah.
your experiences that might help me and everyone else listening on our journey to finding the one?
Sure. Sure. I would say one of the most important things about dating is to always be open, right? Like I thought I was going to meet this certain kind of guy and he was going to have this certain kind of job. We were going to have this certain kind of life. And that's not at all what happened, right? You have to kind of release from the box. You can't really I know there's lots of things out there to say like put your dream man out there and what he looks like and what he does and take nothing less. And here's the thing about that. You can't be open to other things if you don't explore. So enjoy the time you have to explore dating men and just dating in general and what that is. It's about getting to know someone and if it does go to the higher levels, to actually become one with them and be married and share your life with them, it's a big deal. I mean, George and I are like very committed to each other, but commitment phobic in other ways. So, like we can't get a dog because we're like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of commitment. So, but I would say for people that are dating, keep it light. It's okay. Like it doesn't have to get heavy right away. You're there to enjoy each other and to explore each other in the sense of who are you with, what you say and what you do. Like one of the things about George I love so much is that we always talk and he never bores me. And he's making me laugh. And he'll also rub my feet on a bad day. Like he's there for me for all of it, not just for a little bit of it. And the more time you give something, the more someone comes out of their shell. And
Yeah.
so maybe give it some time and don't always think inside the box that it has to look like a certain thing.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice. And that sort of reminds me a little bit of what you were saying earlier about sort of some of the self help books that you're reading and some of the podcasts and everything about how you're trying to think like a man. Man. So, is there any insight from those learnings, that you've been able to apply to this relationship with him?
Gosh, I've listened to so many. I don't even, I could tell you a little secret. So there's this bestseller book, and I want to say it's like The Seven Principles of Marriage, something like that. Now, remember, George and I are commitment phobic in certain ways. Not to say that we will never get married, because we will.
Yes.
But I have to be careful sometimes with the words I use him. So sometimes I read him a book at night, like when we don't feel like watching a movie and we're just relaxing. So he'll let me read to him. So I'm reading that book to him, but I told him it's called The Seven Principles of a Relationship. So
Oh,
every time
sneaky.
the word marriage is used, I switch it to relationship,
Yeah.
because it actually does work. And we're reading this book about the seven principles. One of the principles is to never use the word never with someone. You never do this. You never do that. You know why? Because it's not true, right?
Mhm.
If there's something that you don't want them to do, or you want to discuss them doing, maybe not so much or something, you have to approach it in the right way. And you can't just say, well, you never do that. And well, you never, this type of thing. That's one of the first principles. And so as we talk through the principles, I change it from the word marriage to relationship. He's much more open to listen.
Wow. I also love that you read to him. First of all, that you read to him. That's so adorable. And second of all, that he's open to you reading this relationship book.
Yes.
I just feel like I've touched on this with a couple of the other episodes, but I think, people that are willing to do the work, they're like, okay, I'm not perfect. I want to learn how you think. I want to, you know, think about things differently myself and think about like the way that I'm approaching relationships and my relationship with you, etc. I think that's so important to having a healthy relationship. And so somebody that's willing to go on that journey with you and say, hey, we don't know everything. We've never been married. So
Right.
we're still learning and learning from people that, may have insight. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And even from like friends that we see, or maybe friends we've had before, that, I mean, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but like a couple bickering in front of you, right? It can be
Mm,
awkward, very
hmm.
awkward. And so, he knows, like, if he's upset about something, that he needs to either pull me aside or we discuss it later. We cannot be in a heat of a moment in the middle of, when someone's around. And that, means a lot to me too, for our stuff to be private.
Well, I just love like what I love about your journey is that it's also been a journey to yourself as well. So that both of you started out in New York, that you're both New Yorkers, half Italian. You both made this journey to Jackson Hole. As you've said, you were like, this was not something you saw in your life for yourself, and especially like being a New Yorker, sort of in this entertainment adjacent industry, just completely different world. And then being open to that, first of all, falling in love with that, location, and then starting a different sort of career, selling all of your things back home, continuing to learn through podcasts, through dating, challenging yourself, and like meeting people that are doing the things that you enjoy doing, camping and mountain biking and everything. Um, and then, eventually that led you, when you were at the right place in your journey, to someone that was also on their personal journey. Right time, right place, waiting for the bus on Valentine's Day with a rose for Rose.
Which, we still love our love story because it is very sweet that we were both single on Valentine's Day, and it was just very unexpected, and it didn't happen with a swipe.
Yeah. One thing that I did not ask you was what was he doing up there on Valentine's Day, waiting
Oh,
for the
yeah,
bus?
well, he told me that the reason why he went out by himself is because his chicken didn't defrost. And he said, if my chicken defrosted, we never would have met. And I said, "Oh, ha, ha, ha." But he literally was, so he was out of a relationship for 6 months that had
Mhm.
lasted about 7 years. And remember,
Mm,
I hadn't dated anyone in 7 years, right?
yeah.
So he was like, "You know what? I don't care if it's Valentine's Day. I'm going out." And so he went out because his chicken didn't defrost and he had dinner there, and people watched. And if I it's very hard to get George to dance, but when he does, he's fun.
Yeah.
Well, he probably sat there and watched everyone dance, and just watched people watched and stuff. And then, yeah, we just happened to be same right moment at the right time.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast is just I am just fascinated by those stories about how all the things that had to happen for 2 people to meet.
And we actually realized that we had met before that,
You didn't
but
tell me that. Yes, okay.
no. It's actually funny because I had a friend named Keith who used to live here, and he's a very big, tall man. And he said, "Do you want to go up the pass?" So this is like a mountainside that we climb up to snowboard down. And I said, "I would." I said, "But my back is killing me. I don't think I can carry my board up, to get to the
Mhm.
top to snowboard down." He said, "You know what? I'll just carry both of them." And I was like, "Really? Okay." Now Keith is like this big gay guy, He's like, "I'll carry your skis and I'll carry my
Yeah.
skis and your snowboard." So we happened to be going up the boot pack to the mountain. And I'm not sure how, I think I was telling George the story of how my friend Keith carried my snowboard. And he goes, "Oh my gosh, I was climbing the pass that day and I saw that guy carrying skis and a snowboard." He's like, "That had to be you because I have never seen that again." So,
That's
in
amazing.
passing,
How far how far in advance was that, of when you guys met?
oh gosh, that was probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like maybe 7 years.
So that's I mean, it's timing is everything too. You weren't supposed to meet at that moment because, you weren't where you needed to be on your journey, and he was probably dating his ex-girlfriend at that time.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
um, I just I just think there's so much magic in that.
So much. Well, when he told me that he saw that, I was like, "Well, that had to be me." I was like, "And that was Keith. He was carrying my
Yeah.
board." He's like, and I just remember thinking, "Who does that for somebody?"
And now he's met you, and now he's like, "Oh, I get it. Rose is special."
I guess so.
Um, so just out of curiosity, so since he's kind of a big deal around town, did you know even, like, peripherally who he was? Like, did you have any sort of idea before you met him, or
No.
you were just like, "No."
No, I had no idea. No
Yeah.
idea. But it's funny when we go to, like, events and stuff, he's like the mayor, right? He walks around, "Hey,
Mhm.
oh," and everybody knows him. But even like the sweetest part I find is the young men that,
Mhm.
idolize him, that come up to, "Hi, George." Like they just want to talk to him just because they want
Yeah.
to be near him.
Yeah.
And it's odd for me because I don't do that type of skiing. And I obviously, I'm like, "Oh, you did what? Oh, that was you? Oh, this was what you, oh, okay." Like, but
Yeah.
I don't live that life in the backcountry like he does with the people that he does. So he's in an echelon above everyone else in Jackson Hole, right? Like
Yeah.
he has his patch for extreme skiing, like there's the secret group, all the stuff. And to me, it's like, that's great for you, but and not that I'm not impressed. I'm very impressed by him, but I don't make it like this thing.
Mhm. You guys have enough in common that you have these common interests, but you still have your own things that you're passionate about and your own paths, and I think that's great as well. So,
Definitely.
well, Rose, tell everyone how they can find you and Jackson Hole Rose. Tell us a little bit about what that is and how people can find you and connect with you and follow your journey.
Yeah, sure. So I used to teach the secrets of social media. And so I named myself Jackson Hole Rose years ago. But then when I had the syndicated radio show, I trademarked my name. So you can find me all over the web as Jackson Hole Rose. And if you don't know where Jackson Hole is, definitely do a little Google search and click on photos so you can see where I live. It is a very beautiful, wild, it's one of the last wildest places on earth with the largest ecosystem in the world, which includes Yellowstone National Park. We are part of their ecosystem. And it's a very special place with moose and grizzly bears and all the things, bobcats, lynx, you name it. We got all kinds of beautiful animals and plants, and just it's a wonder to live here. George and I feel very blessed that we live in this space, and we do hope to secure a home in what they've created in the new neighborhood very, very soon. So most of all, you can find me on YouTube as Jackson Hole Rose, because I do a lot of different videos about helping you get on camera and feeling comfortable as a business owner, in addition to talking about the new neighborhood. I talk about all these little places that you can go in Jackson Hole that you can hike to or bike to, or, have an event, go to an event. So Jackson Hole Rose, that's all you have to do is do a little Google search and you'll find me.
I love it. So, if you're going to Jackson Hole, definitely look up Jackson Hole Rose for her secrets and places that you can't miss. Who knows? Maybe you'll meet your future partner there as well. But also, if you need any social media tips or being comfortable in front of the camera tips, check out Jackson Hole Rose.
And if you're single, I'm happy to meet you, like gal wise. If you're a single gal and you're coming to Jackson Hole, definitely look me up. I'm happy to have a coffee or a drink with you.
All right, fantastic. Well, Rose, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all about your relationship with George. I loved hearing your story and learning about the things that you've done to get you to this place in your life, your journey to yourself, and also to your partner. I love that. So, thank you again for sharing your time and your story with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Emily. I really appreciate you having me on and asking me all these fun questions that I do hope help women find their way to their man.
And men too. I
And
have
men.
had men that are very interested in listening to this podcast. So you might learn
Okay.
something about the female brain, men as well.
Yes, that's
Because,
very
hey,
true.
as we've learned from Rose today, it's very important to get inside the brain
Yeah.
of the person that you're trying to date. So, yeah.
I
All
think
right.
Christian Carter was the guy's name that was he did some dating, I don't know, teachings, and I just thought he was really good with the way
Yeah.
he taught, because he was a
Yeah.
man teaching
Yeah.
about in the man's mind. Christian Carter was his name.
Okay. I'll have to check him out. May learn a thing or two, which I definitely need help with. So, thank you so much again for your time, Rose. I really appreciate
Of
it. Have a great rest
course,
of your
and
day.
wishing you all the best on your journey as well.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Kismet. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast because it really does help. If you'd like to share your own Kismet story, you can send it to me at kismetstoriespodcast@gmail.com, or you can connect with me on Instagram at Kismet Stories Podcast. Until next time, be bold, be kind, and be open to everyday magic because your person might be just around the corner. Or they might be waiting for a bus with you at the top of a mountain on Valentine's Day.